Deeper and deeper I go. I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.
Happy Holy Day, Moors. Welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for the exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, and awakening experience for all ages. Tonight, our National Grand Sheik Taj Tarik Bey and I are pleased to present to you an update on G.O.D. demon operations, exposing and explaining the acronyms and more. But before we begin, please be sure to please share, and if you have not already done so, subscribe to our channel. Here we go.
Greetings, Dr. J.
Greetings,
seeing you again.
Grand
You know,
Chief.
you've been busy and I've been busy as usual.
Been traveling.
Yes, you have. We're just continuing updates, or how do you say, reminding the people of things that they need to know, some additional information, but for the most part, redundant information that is necessary to remind or bring our people up to date on the times that they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And also because it's important relative to the people having a cognizance of the foundation of the political operations in order for them to make more rational decisions. Because keep in mind, one of the things that the priesthood are doing now, because things accelerating on the planet relative to both dismantling of long established institutions that has never meant humanity any good, but because humanity has been trained in the institutions, we're all in a state of discomfort as they're being dismantled because the people have limited reference points. And this is why a lot of times when we're talking, we'll give people reference points. Now, as a point for our conversation tonight, we're going to hit on multiple subject matters that may in their own right have what you call lengthy discussions relative to erudition and explanation. We won't be doing that, but we'll be mentioning certain things so that the people have a broader concept on our conversation now as it has been in the past, so that they can do secondary research on their own, because most of the people that come on this channel are themselves scholars. You know, we have some people who are neophytes that may come on the channel, because our appeal and our presentment is mainly for them, you know, truthfully. But we also have what you call longtime scholars and new scholars who are doing their work, and light workers who are doing their work to aid humanity in the present day struggles and this point of political evolution. So we'll be mentioning certain things that are necessary for them to develop. So while certain subject matters, again, this is redundant, certain subject matters require, with even in themselves, a broader study and discussion, all can't be included in logically in our conversation. And as you already know, as far as communications are concerned, unum sanctum operations of indexus librorum prohibitorum and indexus librorum expurgatorius are in place. Therefore, certain things you know that we can't get into, not on this forum. In our in-person forums we can, but we cannot, because we'll not be allowed to put that information out. However, some information, and we remind you as usual to take notes, because it's going to raise a lot of questions that can't be answered on this forum. However, many of them you can answer them yourselves by us giving certain references. And so one of the things in the title that we want to present is the acronym of G.O.D. That the people have been trained from childhood means the creator, which we know that it doesn't. Right. Particularly not in the concept that has been taught to them. And so we're presenting to them not opinion, but true both political operations and etymology or etymon origin, so that they can make more reasonable decisions in their lives or how they guide their own lives. Because remember, when it really boils down, part of what we do is to aid people in self-empowerment so that they can start taking more responsible control of their own development, spiritually, politically, economically. And logically, those tools have been absent of them because they have not known the real operations of government that has groomed their lives. So this is why we're presenting this. So one of the things that we want to present is this. Conceptually, the people think that the word God is itself just the name of the creator, which it wasn't and isn't. That's the truth. It's Old English, or what you call Old High German, origin, etc., is presented to the people for mostly control purposes. And we all already know Eloah and Elohim, dealing with singular and plural, yes, is never taught to the people. Absolutely. That's a subject matter in its own, but we're not going to go there. Right. Now, in the political operations, and particularly in all what is loosely referred to as quote unquote Occidental Western government operations, etc., actually means government ordinance departments, plural. Government ordinance departments. This includes all branches of government presented to the people in what is known as the parentis platforms. Parentis platforms. This is the socialization, whereas the quote unquote government departments are presented as a parent to the people, classified as citizens and also as subjects.
So also is that also when you hear parents padre, also
yeah,
that patriarchal
parents
father.
Padre. That's yeah. That's what you already know it means.
Yeah.
But that's presented to the people, particularly the neophytes, so that you can write that down, because you're going to have to study a little further on your own, because certain information we're not allowed to present in what you call these forums because of prohibitorum and expurgatorius, which is established. To you, in the general public, it will refer to as censoring, shadow banning, and other familiar terms with your demonetization, all these different terms that are applied today to keep the people from getting knowledge relative to how things really work, distinguished from their trained or entrainment concepts. We want to establish that. It also stands for gold, oil, and drugs, which are tools of these Occidental platforms of de facto government. So we established that. All right. 2, we're going to go to the etymon of the word God, so that the people will have a concept of what politicians and your high priest really know that they don't teach the public, but they keep among themselves with the knowledge that it is used to control the public. Are we clear? Not based on how you feel, your emotions, and things that you have called spirituality. We're talking the reality of the political operations of these presentments to you by those who have been governing your lives.
Can I interject?
Yes.
God is good.
Yes, and they both mean the same thing.
All the time. That's what they say.
That's because that's correct.
God is good.
Now, what does the word God mean? It means good.
Absolutely.
And it's a verb transitive.
God is a
It
verb.
is not a noun. Verb transitive.
It
For
is
your own study.
pouring out.
Yes.
It is.
And we're going to get into that because we're going into the etymon today, right? Now, for today, show you reference, we're just going to use a basic elementary dictionary to show you don't need what you would call deep PhD professorship to learn to read. We're just going to give you a basic American Heritage College dictionary. All right. Now, God, and they present it as a noun, but we know that it's a verb transitive. Now, you'll find that when you do what you call the etymon research. All right. It's why they don't teach etymology. 1, God, a perfect being conceived as, not being the, but conceived as the creator of the universe and worshipped in monotheistic religions. So write that down, monotheistic religions, so that you'll have a background to comprehend the definitions that are given to you to have the intelligent capacities to separate the denotations from connotation. Keep that in mind. We won't get into that. We're giving you tools so that you can start spiritually, intellectually, informationally liberating yourself, which is necessary to absorb other parts of this conversation that we're having. Now we'll go to the base, and you'll see right here, and I know you can't see it all. I have it yellowed out, right, highlighted, and you'll go to the bottom, and it will give you, right, the Old English origin, and it would say G.U, and that would be G-H-E-U, etc., so that you can go to its etymon. So you go to G.U, and then you go back into your etymology dictionary on the English language, or in the etymology that's shared in this particular book, right? Which they will not have in most dictionaries that they share with the public, because they do not want the public to learn the fundamental rules of reading. Because remember, etymon principle is removed from schools, particularly related to persons who are under what you call colonial occupation. Such persons in the Western Hemisphere are commonly referred to through the nom de guerre tags as Negroes, Blacks, Coloreds, Indians. This general fundamental rule of reading is held back from them because they're held as subject or serfs. Now, G.U, to call, to invoke, suffix 0 grade form gusti. The invoked God, i.e., and this would be from Old English God or good God, right? And from Old English Gui, good, and also derived from Old High German gut, etc. And you have expanded definitions, which we won't get into at the moment, but we need you to be aware that what you've been told the word God means is not what it means, never did mean what you think it means. The first order, or what you call entry, is for controlling the general public. That's why that would be your first, what they refer to in fundamental reading, your linear entries. So we read them, but we're giving you the root so that you can get all of the other meanings. So you can follow up with that. We won't go into that because that's a lesson all in itself. And knowing that most of the scholars that are on this with us on this channel are already aware of that. But that's presented to the neophytes so that they don't get offended or thinking that we're attacking their quote unquote emotional belief systems, because that's not what we're talking. We're talking to tell them the truth about what they've been trained in so that they can begin or continue to take self-responsibility to make life better by coming closer to the harmonies of nature or divine nature and liberate themselves from the demons who have been actually governing them in the name of government, i.e., for purpose of liberation. And so we'll let that be. And now I'll turn the floor over to you, Dr. G, for the people to have some concepts of how politicians actually think or how they operate among themselves in their privy council meetings, whether in House of Representatives or in the Congress or among your privy chambers of council people. We're not talking about their general meetings. We're talking about their actual privy council meetings that are not the meetings that people assume that they're having for the purposes of their responsibility as trustees to deal with what you call entries or voucher entries into the Sister QV trust operations, which is inculcated in all government structures for creating and moving what they refer to as treasury bonds, etc., that are the foundations for mostly international trade, which is not revealed to the general public, and for bond issues or for raising energies or what you will call credits for trade of resources around the world. All right, so that would be called your U.S. Treasury bonds that most have their origin around 1862. That's another lesson in itself. All right, but you need to understand how what you've been told is monetary operations, what it really is but what it's not. And the other thing that I want to share while speaking of that, Dr. G, is remind people of the obligations of the so-called federal alleged, and that's a qualified alleged public servants, federal, state, city, municipal, all of them, bar none. This is their obligation, contrary to anything that they tell you. This is their obligation. And we'll go to Constitution for the United States, to which they all must take what is called solemn oath in order to take trustee office in any level for the United States, federal, state, county, municipal, etc. And so we're going to deal with Article 1, subsection 10. No, this deals in general, so concept for you to do your own research. This would deal with a ban on international liaisons and contract interference. That's in principle. Are we clear? We know that most of you scholars that come here on the House of Reawakening Minds already understand fundamental contract law. But we already know that the general masses are not taught fundamental contract law. Another reason why we share these things, because we know that most of our people are not apprised of these fundamental principles of erudition necessary for human interchange and trade. This is again why we share some of these things here at the House of Reawakening Minds, to make you, or to share, or to aid you in being more astute in your everyday affairs in politics and geopolitics and in your economic affairs that you deal with every day, including your private estate that is not private, has been made public without your knowledge. But here we go. Article 1, subsection 10. No state shall enter into any treaty, comma, alliance, comma, or confederation, semicolon, grant letters of marque, that's MARQUE, repeat, MARQUE. Look that up, because we're not going to give you the definition right now. Or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. It is important for you to break down all sections of the Supreme Law of the Land, Article 1, Section 10, for you to comprehend, understand, understand, overstand the obligation of any so-called public servant, official, or anyone that they hire as subcontractors to do any bidding for them in the name of government. This is very important. This is so that you don't get caught or distracted in all or any conversations presented to you relative to so-called digital currencies or central bank digital currencies, which they're going to be forcing on you currently and in the near future, although they've already had us within that venue for decades. You just didn't know it. So that you can measure and not be deceived relative to the things that they're going to force upon the people, as they themselves are liquidating people's private, or what people assume to be their so-called bank accounts or saving accounts or investments or retirement accounts, and all these things that the people thought were in place for their securities economically, etc., which they are actually in the background and currently draining while diverting you with wars and skirmishes around the world. Comprehend that that's a cover and a diversion. Though injurious to the people, they're still diversions because they're liquidating the accounts that they have your names on. Just keep that in mind. So that's a subject matter in its own. This is so that you're not distracted by things that they're doing to you or putting in mainstream news, etc., even though it's injurious to the people, to distract you from some of the major things that are actually taking place in the background. So I wanted to introduce that so that the people have some state of mind of the political venues that are actually in operation. I yield the floor, turn it over to you, Dr. G, so that you can share with the people in real time the fiction of the promise or the threat of what the people have been told of Third World War operations with these injurious diversions, and let the people know the truth about the Third World War, timing wise, and also to expose to the public how we have been set out of time and reality for the purpose that things shall be done to the people by the hands of persons holding government while maintaining design deception with the people so that the people can be injured by them or their contractors for the purpose of preserving themselves from what you would call international criminal war, what you call war violations. Are we clear?
So you want you would like me to share what we talked about earlier with
Yes,
regard
this
to
is there. This is a brief, because remember, the technical manual is a brief given to all persons in political forums, but not held or exposed to the general public. So share it, Dr. G.
So we were discussing, which Grand Sheik has shared with us on many occasions, but he's asked me to go through some of the portions a little bit more, to read them exactly as they are, and we can talk about that. And that is the Rex 84 or King Alfred plan, also known as the silent weapon, executive war, the silent weapon for quiet wars, or something like that. So at the beginning of this book, just to let you know, it says that this booklet contains vital excerpts from, and this is from Executive Order 11490. You have to understand that executive orders come from the executive branch, so-called the executive branch of government. So this is not something that, somebody just created. This was an official document. And that's October 19th, 1969, also known as the King Alfred Plan, the Rex 84 Plan, concentration camps, Executive Order 1149 expanded, top secret, silent weapons for quiet wars, and it's an introductory programming manual. Operations research is technical, is what, as Grand Sheik has said, those certain members of Congress and so forth, they get this, they know this. And one of the things this actually tells you, United States of America Incorporated, that the Executive Order number 11490, the Rex 84 Plan, silent weapons for quiet wars, has been in the hands of the popularly accepted individuals calling themselves the Black leaders. Since the early 1970s, and they've done nothing, of course, to warn anybody of this, because this is, I guess, they feel privy to this. Maybe they feel that they have been protected from it, but because it was given to them. But many had spoken of them, but few have logistically broken them down and disseminated the information to the alluring public. The King Alfred Plan implicates the true motive and reason why they do not. And I want to read one little quote here about ignorance. Ignorance, dogmatic belief systems, and tunnel vision mark the preferred opiate or drug for the knowledge-fearing masses. King Alfred is the culling tool for the non-productive burden on civilization and the world's resources. Now, why they use King Alfred, you'd have to read up on him and study. But on the security page of this document, I'm just going through certain parts of it. It says it is patently impossible to discuss social engineering or the automation of society, for example, the engineering of social automation systems or silent weapons on a national or worldwide scale without implying extensive objectives of social control and destruction of human life, i.e., slavery and genocide. And you know what we're going through currently. We've been going through it longer than we probably have realized, but we know in the last 3 or 4 years, we've known it more. So it's been more abundantly clear in the last 3 or 4 years. This manual is in itself an analog declaration of intent. Such a writing must be secured from public scrutiny. These are their words. Otherwise, it might be recognized as a technically formal declaration of the domestic war. Furthermore, whenever any person or group of persons in a position of great power and without the full knowledge and methodology for economic conquest, Furthermore, whenever any person or group of persons in a position of great power and without the full knowledge and consent of the public uses such knowledge and methodology for economic conquest, it must be understood that a state of domestic warfare exists between said persons or group of persons and the public. Let that sink in. The solution of today's problems requires an approach which is ruthlessly candid, with no agonizing over religious, moral, or cultural values. You have qualified for this project because of your ability to look at human society with cold objectivity and yet analyze and discuss your observations and conclusions with others of similar intellectual capacity without a loss of discretion or humility. Such virtues are exercised in your own best interest. Do not deviate from them. This is what they're telling those who were given this information. And then it says, welcome aboard. Everybody's worrying about, are we about to enter into the Third World War with what's going on in Ukraine and what's going on in Israel and all of that. But listen to this, Palestine. But listen to this. This publication marks the 25th anniversary of the Third World War.
Can you repeat that, Dr. Judy?
This publication marks the 25th anniversary of the Third World War, called the quote-unquote Quiet War, being conducted using subjective biological warfare fought with silent weapons. This book contains an introductory description of this war, its strategies, and its weaponry. At the time of this printing, it was 1979, May of 1979, meaning if this was the 25th anniversary, we have been in the Third World War since 1954. Let that sink in. Folk are wondering whether or not this is the Third World War that's coming, and we've been engaged in it. We've been silently affected by it. We've been attacked by it.
It's been operated.
It's been in operation
all the time.
Yes. So for the pair, I'm 68. It's 69 years. 69 years. The Third World War. Actually, it's coming really to a head. What it is. And that is also the reason, knowing that we were already in the Third World War, that is why some accuse our National Grand Sheik of being the Fourth World War.
Mm-hmm.
Because they knew we were already in the third one. That was the silent one. All right. So I also want to share another quote that Meyer Amschel Rothschild wrote. And he said, and this is very key to what's going on now. He said, give me control over a nation's currency, and I care not who makes its laws. And it's very interesting because, Grand Sheik, of what's going on, like as you mentioned, with them saying, oh, we're going to be, switch to digital currency. And as you said, digital currency has always been in operation for the longest of times, because when we do things, so-called banking online and so forth, all that stuff is done.
It's been in operation. Yeah. And this is because people know that digital represents abstract.
Mm-hmm.
But what they haven't been told is that the voucher system is the bookkeeping system to register or to keep record of the digital operations, which have been in operation since 1913, with the institution of the Church and Chancery's operations of what is known as the Federal Reserve Board on Jekyll Island. Which again, now when we go into, when I introduced Article 10, Article 1, Section 10, it shows you what their obligation is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their obligation is what? Gold and silver coin. And as an interim, as we go along tonight, I would like you to just as an interjection, remind for these last few years while you've been aiding the people with silver acquisition.
Absolutely.
In harmony with the supreme law of the land, so that the people can understand conceptually it was not just a good idea that you were presenting, but you're actually enforcing the law. Absolutely. So it's not only self-protection of your estate, you were actually enforcing the law. And yet some people will simply look at it as a what? A personal business adventure.
Right.
And it's far beyond that.
I mean, it's been,
Far beyond
as
that.
I, digress a little bit from, where I was reading, but yes, it has been, for me here, listening to you for, at that point, 2020. So I want to say 9 years of listening to what you were saying about gold and silver, and, kind of taking it lightly. And then when the opportunity presented itself, I remember what you said. So it wasn't one of those just, hey, this is another business thing. It was like, hey, Grant, she's been talking about this for the last 9 years that I've been listening to him, and here's an opportunity. And let me kind of catch up, because you've been, doing this. Cynthia's been collecting, for instance, silver since she was a child, because her grandfather introduced her into that. But most
telling
of
her the truth.
Telling her the truth. So most of us haven't had that that coaching and that leg up, if you will.
Most of us have that information has been held back from them.
Absolutely.
They just think it's an interesting hobby or option, not knowing that that's the supreme law of the land.
Right.
And when they collapse the institutions, that will be your saving grace to even feed your families or have capacity for barter trade in real time for survival purposes that people don't know is being forced on them. And when you look at King Alfred, you see the genocide intent and why things are collapsing, as you see that the Third World War that's been in operation for roughly 70 years.
Almost 70 years. Yeah.
We're just rounding it out.
Yeah, next year will be 70.
That's coming to a what you call head in many levels, and the people are under the impression that certain things are beginning when they have actually been enforced during the whole lifespan of a lot of people listening to this channel.
Absolutely.
Whose whole life was groomed within the Third World War, and they were never even aware of it. And they think it's something pending in the future. So you see how, in reality, the politicians have actually set the people out of time sequence, and the people don't even know it.
Yes.
Yield the floor.
Absolutely. So I'm also going to share what's in this book about the artificial womb, or the matrix. Most of us know about the matrix, but they know about the matrix too. Anyway, it says from the time a person leaves its mother's womb, its every effort is directed towards building, maintaining, and withdrawing into artificial wombs various sorts of substitute protective devices or shells. You want to say something?
Yes. Now, keep this in mind, the word artificial. And so while you're looking at the word artificial that's presented to all politicians, they know the synonyms are prima facie, colored, simulacrum, fiction, fiat, fraud, etc., which are synonyms to what is presented. I yield the floor, Dr. G.
Okay. So, the objective of these artificial wombs is to provide a stable environment for both stable and unstable activity, to provide a shelter for the evolutionary process of growth and maturity, for example, survival, to provide security for freedom, and to provide defensive protection for offensive activity. This is equally true of both the general public and the elite. However, there is a definite difference in the way each of these classes go about the solution of problems, right? This is the primary reason why the individual citizens of a country create a political structure is a subconscious wish or desire to perpetuate their own dependency relationships of childhood. So they hire politicians to face reality for them. And here's the summary. The people hire the politicians so that the people can obtain security without managing it, obtain action without thinking about it, inflict theft, injury, and death upon others without having to contemplate either life or death, avoid responsibility for their own intentions, obtain the benefits of reality and science without exerting themselves in the discipline of or facing or learning either of those things. They give the politicians the power to create and manage a war machine to provide for the survival of the nation/womb, to prevent encroachment of anything upon that nation/womb, and to destroy those citizens of their country who do not conform for the sake of stability of the nation/womb. Politicians hold many quasi-military jobs, the lowest being the police, which are soldiers, the attorneys and CPAs, next who are spies and saboteurs, licensed, and the judges who shout the orders and run the closed union military shop for whatever the market will bear. The generals are industrialists. The presidential level of commander-in-chief is shared by the international bankers. Excuse me. The people know that they have created this farce and financed it with their own taxes. That's given them consent. But they would rather knuckle under than be the hypocrite. Thus, a nation becomes divided into two very distinct parts: a docile subnation and a political subnation. The political subnation remains attached to the docile subnation, tolerates it, leeches its substance until it grows strong enough to detach itself and devour its parents.
Now, that is a true political definition of quote unquote colonization and occupation, clarified for all political office holders, but never revealed to the public, who are held as food or targets. Yield the floor.
Well,
so we got to see what their relationship with us actually is, distinguished from what we have been trained or assumed that it is or was or will be.
And see, I don't, where this book, and somebody asked what was I reading from? This is the King Alfred plan that I'm reading from, y'all. See it.
And that's a summary. Go back to the summary.
It's a summary.
No, go back. It's important to go back to the summary.
Okay.
This is so that people will be very clear of what's your right here.
So you want me to read it, or you want me?
I want you to show it so they can do a screenshot and then read it.
I don't know if it's clear. Let's try. I don't know, but that's we got to highlight it. Okay.
Now read it.
So this booklet contains vital excerpts from Executive Order 11490, October 19th, 1969, the King Alfred Plan, the Rex 84 Plan, concentration camps, Executive Order 11490 expanded, and Top Secret Silent Wars for Quiet Wars, Introductory Programming Manual, Operations Research, Technical Manual TM-SW7905.1. And so that's basically what I was sharing.
And it must be comprehended and must be known by those who are sharing this channel with us at the House of Reawakening Minds, that all persons holding political office, from your high members of city council up to the mayors, up to the governors, up to so-called congresswomen and congressmen, up to so-called senators, etc., up to the executive office for the United States Service Corporation Company, which is not and never been a country. It's actually an occupational corporation, i.e., with its executive trustees of the president, answerable to the members of the Circle Church and Chancery at Fleet Street, England, that governs all so-called pseudo-court systems in the Western Hemisphere, answerable to Buckingham Palace, answerable to the Pope of Rome and the bishopric order of the Roman Catholic Church, that actually is the quote-unquote God of this world. G, period, O, period, D, period, government ordinance departments of unum sanctum and the doctrine of discovery, enforcement on all occupied peoples of Midgard, commonly known as planet Earth. Yield the floor.
I'm going to share this part too. There's a section, page 33, called economic shock testing. I think this is interesting. It says in recent times, and remember this came out in 1979. And in recent times, the application of operations research to the study of the public enemy has been obvious for anyone who understands the principles of shock testing. In the shock testing of an aircraft airframe, the recoil impulse of firing a gun mounted on an airframe causes shock waves in that structure, which tell aviation engineers the conditions under which parts of the airplane or the whole airplane or its wings will start to vibrate or flutter like a guitar string, a flute reed, or a tuning fork, and disintegrate or fall apart in flight. Economic engineers achieve the same result in studying the behavior of the economy and the consumer public by carefully selecting a staple commodity such as beef, coffee, gasoline, or sugar, then causing a sudden change or shock in its price or availability, thus kicking everybody's budget and buying habits out of shape. Then they observe the shock waves, which result by monitoring the changes in advertising, prices, and sales of that and other commodities. The objective of such studies is to acquire the know-how or the knowledge of how to get the public economy in a predictable state of motion or change, even a controlled, here it is, self-destructive state of motion, which will convince the public that the certain quote unquote expert people could take control of the money system and reestablish security rather than liberty and justice for all. When the subject citizens are quote unquote rendered unable to control their financial affairs, they of course become totally enslaved, a source of cheap labor. Not only the prices of commodities, but also the availability of labor can be used as a measure of shocks to an economy, especially in the critical service areas. Back then, trucking, transportation, communication, public utilities, energy, water, garbage collection, etc. By shock testing, it is found that there is a direct relationship between the availability of money flowing in the economy and the psychological outlook and the responses of masses of people dependent upon that availability. For example, this is interesting. There is, Sheik, a measurable quantitative relationship between the price of gasoline and the probability that a person would experience a headache, feel a need to watch a violent movie, smoke a cigarette, or go to a tavern for a mug of beer. I mean, maybe right now they're rejoicing a little bit better because we have this temporary, downturn in the price of gasoline, but we know that that's the calm before the storm.
Remember, interjection. God, G, gold, O, oil, petroleum,
Mm-hmm.
D, drugs.
Right. So yeah, and get your everybody get
Now let's look at even how what you call cities are constructed and administered. Pay attention to all so-called urban city organized structure, licenses, and regulations, and you will note that in targeted communities, they will have churches on one corner or in the middle of the block, and within 1 block radius, there will be a bar or liquor store.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's part of God. It's part of gold, which is hidden from the people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Article 1, Section 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oil, which deals with the petroleum, heating, transportation, right? Gasoline, and drugs, alcohol, spirits,
Yeah.
and the other so-called drugs that are initiated, which all the major politicians actually hold stock in. This includes what? So-called these that are put in the bloodstreams of people, all being patented, that all can be traced back to Rex 84.
Right. Right. So
Biological
warfare.
There you go.
Yes.
It's the people think it's new, right?
Right.
It's not. Never was.
Right.
And see, when you comprehend this, understand how things work, you can start informing your families so they don't fall victim to biological warfare that they have been trained under animal husbandry was medicinal cures, which it is not, was not, and will not be ever coming from them.
Absolutely.
And it's difficult for people to accept it because of the parentis mentality.
Yeah, I mean, some are getting parts of it, and they're like, oh, like I just heard recently on looking at one of those stations that I don't like, looking at mainstream media, but you have to peep every now and then and see what the heck they're saying, and knowing that you know the truth, but the fact of the matter is they was like, oh, some Dems, some left wingers, I guess you would say, are starting to become chanted with what the current so-called, commander in chief.
A little bit of wake up, a little bit,
but not enough.
Yes,
not enough to actually
save themselves.
Yeah,
from the impending operation.
But some of these same people are saying, "Oh, gotta get my B." Gotta go. Gotta go get the.
We'll be all right.
Because that's gonna while we're dropping like flies. We're dropping like flies.
Younger and younger.
Yes, I mean, so it is just it boggles my mind on the one hand, but I was listening to a one of those like galactic transmissions talking about where we are right now, and saying that a large number of folks are going to have decided to check out. And when when they say decided to, but somehow in them, whether it was what the time they set when they came in, when the stuff gets tough,
some in denial,
right, but that there was going to be a large wave of folks leaving who were not going to be able to withstand
by depression that they don't know the origin of.
Right, they can't. They don't know what to do, so they can't. They can't fight the good fight, if they will, and so they're checking out. And so we have to be able to get to that place. We're talking about we weren't gonna. And the other thing I shared with you and you shared with me is that some of the things we were not going to discuss, only because even while it may be true, these things we don't want to contribute to those depressions, those depressive thoughts, those depressive actions, those those
which
feelings
feeds
of
into
hope,
the destruction.
by giving even though sometimes giving the truth will set folk off. And so you got to be real careful sometimes about what you can share and not injure the very people that you're hoping or looking to aid or to inform. And so that's another reason why we've decided to kind of be a little bit more like gingerly,
what you might call, how do you say, beat around the bush
a little bit more,
and trust that you have enough keys to read between the lines, whether with us or any other light workers, and particularly with all or any persons claiming to be, quote unquote, your government. Remember, that's a claim.
Right.
That's not a reality. That's a claim coming under what? Patre parentis.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's what. Now, the operations that Dr. G just described to you relative to the shock testing, the code word that's used among politicians in presenting anything to the public is called what? Inflation. Repeat, write that down. The word, quote unquote, inflation is the code word for the shock testing operations. It's not what you think it is. What you have just now been shared by Dr. G's words, how the politicians are really thinking and what's really going on, distinguished from what they've been telling you or what they may be telling you in any mainstream news venues.
Right.
And so when you hear them keep interjecting the word inflation, that's a code word for the shock testing that's actually going on.
Right. And the other thing that is going on, and you all probably have noticed, is they're making a lot of things less available. Things are now, like I said, the old, the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away.
Lords of London.
The Lord, is in play, because they're snatching away a lot of things that folks have come to rely on or to just assume would always be there. Like, I'll die before such and such. No, they're taking away. So there is a denial or a deprivation.
And
so
part of that training was actually done mostly with dogs, but with other animals. Shock testing that's being applied to the people, the human population, through Rex 84, King Alfred, Executive Order 11490, from which we're referring some of the things to wake you up so that you can be more diligent, meaning that part of why we're having this conversation is for many of you to start being alert and not passive.
Right.
Passivity is dangerous, particularly in this time.
Anything that they're introducing these days, I would be highly, suspect. I would
anything that they say.
I would deem it.
We are here to help you. Beware. It's a tip of a spear.
Which brings into, and somebody put it in the chat, and I got a phone call about this today. So I'm not sure whether you're aware of this, but they're updating the Snyder Act of the 1921 and 1924. Over that period, they had the Snyder Act, and they're trying to. There's a TikTok videos out. I understand that are allegedly suggesting that if you go and fill out this application and you can get your, you can declare yourself being XYZ. But if you realize what the original Snyder Act did, the original Snyder Act was for the quote unquote Indians, and I'm not sure if they were the $5 ones or what, to be able to become a full U.S. citizens. So again, it's an adhesion, another contract. They're trying to get folks to.
It is really a stock agreement.
Right.
See, and this is back to why we're sharing this, Dr. G, because their concept of what they think U.S. citizen means has never been what it means. It actually means stock, human, chattel stock, expendable stock, after being drained of all inheritances, which is referred to as the human energy essence.
Yeah. So, there's just so much that's happening at such a rapid pace. It's like we're going to throw everything at them. I looked at a TikTok that somebody did, but what they were basically showing was an old episode of the X-Files. And they were saying The Simpsons was not the only predictive programming program that was out there. And I tell you, this particular episode of the X-Files, almost to the letter, is discussed everything that has gone on that we are aware of in the last 3 to 4 years. Everything in that, and accusing the government of doing it. And so we need to we need to wake up and get into a more, I think, another deepen our practice of meditation and going within, because out there you're being bombarded with a lot of stuff, and we've got to get, we talked about this, we don't need to be in the 4th dimension. We need to get right up into the 5th dimension, and you don't have to die to do that, but you can't allow yourself
now, let's look at some of the metaphysical truths.
Okay.
Now keep in mind, what I'm getting ready to say has nothing to do with what people think or have been trained that religious statements are.
Okay.
Right? This is where it's represented by Yeshua, who demonstrates to humanity that you don't have to die to go to heaven.
Absolutely.
All right. Also, if the concept of death had been introduced to you properly, you can come from that. But you have to look at that as layers of comprehension. Heaven is not a place to go. It is a state of mind. Now, I'm saying that, and I won't go further with that, but that must be looked at in the nature of Berber culture from which that it originates, not from a worshipful concept, but from a metaphorical concept. All right.
Yeah, so we have to get away from the fear factor.
Yes.
That has been introduced, and we have to have these open minds and open hearts, because they try to get us, pit us against each other, against
them.
That's
what and all you see what's going on now, including you'll see a lot of videos constantly showing all of the negative cultivation of women in relationships, particularly Moabite, Canaanite women who are tagged commonly now as Indian Black people. Those are tags, keep that in mind, in order to continue or to accelerate the mistrust among us, so that our energies are not what you would call in harmony with nature. It's including the gender bending operations of the organic or biological warfare that the people have been trained to think is circumstances of children's thoughts, not knowing that this is part of the biological operations of family destruction and genocide, having nothing to do with what the public's perception of these activities are. None of it is what you have been trained to think it is. It's for family destruction, so that we don't come to each other's aid as the people wake up, and also to create mental damage among women, so that they will damage their children in the womb while the child is being developed, so that they will come from the womb mentally ill already and prepared for death or POW camps, which are known as quote unquote public prisons, which are run by the members of the Circle Church and Chancery, who are really the Sadducees and Pharisees, i.e., lawyers, attorneys, etc., which are mentioned in Article 1, Section 10, which deals with the titles of nobility that you will learn when you do further research into constitutional studies beyond what you appear to have on the surface. It's another reason why I presented this from the beginning, Dr. J. I yield the floor again.
You're yielding the floor to me. Well, I mean, the point that we've discussed, Sheik and I have a lot of discussions, and they sometimes, we probably should just record the discussions. You have to, probably should just because some the stuff
you have to. It's sort of like Dr. G, and it may be frustrating for us and for the people, because we will hit on a lot of things that require explanation and further research, knowing that it cannot be shared.
Right.
Because they will shut this thing down. The screen will go black. If we say some of the things we really know politically and the law, they will literally shut the screen down. Well, y'all know that by now. So certain things we're saying to you, we're trusting that instead of spending, say, $200 for a pair of sneaks, that you'll spend $50 for a pair of sneaks and send and the other 150 and start restoring your libraries in your homes for yourselves and for your children. And many of the literatures that we share with you, including Henry Campbell Black's Law Dictionary of Ancient and Modern Jurisprudence, including your older dictionaries, Dictionary on the Etymology of the English Language, etc., and other literature to what? Make your families and yourself more erudite in human comprehension of human social interchange, which these are foundational pieces of information that have been removed from our people, but is necessary for people to, one, really restore the capacity to read. We don't need to get into that because reading doesn't mean all that you trained in that area too.
Comprehension.
But again, and the capacity to regurgitate that comprehension.
Absolutely.
But again, as you can see, all of when we begin to explain some of these things, it trails off into other levels of information that are necessary for comprehension and understanding of the discussion. This is again why we will point to certain things and trust that you love yourselves enough to invest in yourselves for study, and will give you keys that you can start restoring erudition within your own families. Keep in mind, while it may be frustrating, persons who are claimed to be your government have never had an intentions of making you erudite. So no matter what you invest in so-called General Board of Education institutions, they are never and never were put in place for your erudition. They were put in place for animal husbandry training only, no matter how sophisticated it may sound. However, we have to, even though it may be frustrating, to start taking responsibility for our own erudition, because we can't make you know. You must want to know. And with that desire to know, you will start redirecting your energy outputs that are being drained from you, both cognitively, consciously, politically, and economically by the day, hidden under the words tithe and taxes, which equal the same thing, run by the popes of Rome. Yield the floor, Dr. J.
So now I'm going to share what they've written about diversion, which is the primary strategy they call. Experience has proven that the simplest method of securing a silent weapon and gaining control of the public is to keep the public undisciplined and ignorant of basic systems principles on one hand, while keeping them confused, disorganized, and distracted with matters of no real importance on the other hand. In that this is achieved by, one, disengaging their minds, sabotaging their mental activities by providing a low quality program of public education in mathematics, logic, and systems design and economics, and by discouraging technical creativity. Two, by engaging their emotions, increasing their self-indulgence and their indulgence in emotional and physical activities by an unrelenting emotional affrontations and attacks, meaning mental and emotional rape, by way of a constant barrage of sex, violence, and wars in the media, especially.
Repeat that last part. A barrage.
A barrage of sex, violence, and wars in the media, especially in TV and newspapers, by giving them what they desire in excess, junk food for thought, and depriving them of what they really need. Rewriting history and law and subjecting the public to deviant creation, thus being able to shift their thinking from personal needs to highly fabricated outside priorities. These preclude their interest in and discovery of the silent weapons of social automation technology. The general rule is that there is profit in confusion. The more confusion, the more profit. Therefore, the best approach is to create problems, and then you know what they do, offer solutions. And here's the summary. Media keep the adult public attention diverted away from real social issues and captivated by matters of no real importance. And I'm going to say this, and I know I'm going to anger a bunch of you,
but you got to tell the truth,
fellas, and even some of you sisters. But I know you're not going to take this easily. But do you realize that the favorite pastimes that they've created, baseball, basketball, football, hockey, soccer, all those things, do you realize that those are diversions, distractions, deliberately created to create an energy source we call loosh? Because when you get all right, it's the same thing as the Roman Colosseums of back in the day when they was fighting each other to the death, or fighting the lions, and the crowd was roaring. The so-called gods or the Elohim were up there sucking up all of that energy. And it may seem far-fetched for some of y'all, but we give off an aroma, we give off an energy source when we get excited. So they create these venues where lots of folks are going to get together and rah, 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 and send it up. And they're living off of this. They're living off of this. And you think, oh, you got to see the Chargers and the, in the whoever was playing last night. You got to see the Phillies going to get the. No. You might enjoy those things, but they have been created as a distraction, for that distraction, and for that harvesting of the energy that is generated as a result of that. I just got to tell y'all that y'all gonna keep on loving your sports and loving your all that stuff, but you know what? It's gonna come a day they're gonna snatch it away too.
It's a distraction.
Yeah, it's a distraction.
Doesn't mean that you can't enjoy it,
right?
Or that you don't. But you need to know that it's a social engineering tool, not what you've ever been trained that it is. The deal of it is to know what you're dealing with, as opposed to assuming it to be entertainment as presented. The entertainment as presented is a cover, but we think that the cover is what it is. That's the key, Dr. G.
Right.
It is not unlike the old adage that's taught to the people about what is loosely referred to as the quote unquote Trojan horse principle. It is absolutely that. And when you comprehend that, you'll understand why, quote unquote, most relationships don't work. Marriage, as been presented to us, is actually a damaging institution, not the nature of man and woman by nature being mated. We're talking about the marriage operations. The people don't even know is a contractual weapon. They thought it was divine. And that's what makes people uncomfortable, because they've been trained to think it deals with divine love of union, and it never did.
And it never will.
And the damaging part is that it's difficult for people to separate the reality from the rituals, because the rituals they've been trained is the reality. But the truth is 90% it never really works. And the people don't understand that it's a weapon. And they get frustrated because it never works, because they believe it to be one thing.
And it's not.
And it is not only not, never has been. Problem, how do you make the people erudite and bring them out of denial and aid them in coming more in harmony with divine law and nature, in order to liberate themselves from something they were deceived into believing was divine, not knowing it was a weapon? This is what makes it difficult and also uncomfortable even having these conversations, and why a lot of people get shut down, because they think you're attacking beliefs, their divine God concepts, not knowing that all of this stuff has been social engineered.
Absolutely.
And because the people lack true culture reference point, they will defend the weapons that are institutionalized against their interest, biological and economic, and it never dawns on them, which is why this is known politically as what? Quiet, silent weapons.
The quiet wars, right?
For quiet wars. And the promise or the threat, for fear purposes, of the so-called Third World War has been in operation roughly 70 years already. So most of the people, many of the people who are in physical life today don't even know that their life has been groomed within the Third World War, that they've been trained currently to think is possibly coming.
Yeah.
They're totally set out of sequence. Therefore, their guard is down and they're living in a false matrix as we speak, which is why, again, when we're having these conversations, it makes a lot of people uncomfortable because internally they know it's true.
Yeah.
But they have limited reference points.
A lot of times people feel hopeless, though. You know,
That's why they do. It's the hopelessness is part of the design effect. But the deal of it is to know that that's what it is.
Yeah.
But also knowing it's artificial means it doesn't have to exist, except if you believed it.
Which is why some folks are in. It's funny. There was a thing he used to say in the church: "Be in the world, but not of it." And
exactly.
That's not even religious when you think about it. It's reality. It is possible to seem to be physically in a space, but not, if you will, and we know spirit means breathing, but to be at a higher, if you will, ascended place in your soul. I'm gonna call it in your soul, at the soulish realm. You're able to, but we get so distracted, like with the things we talked about just a few minutes ago. We would rather spend time watching folks, kick each other around, but push do these things rather than work on our real ascension. The ascension that we ought to be seeking is to go higher, to develop our, our chakras and
interjection.
Go ahead.
The ritual of the activation of the medulla and the pineal gland, etc., and the activation to have the capacity to enter into what you call higher dimensional thought, just like you say, fifth dimensions, as an example. And we're talking
and
about.
Let's talk about the fourth we talked about.
Now that would be called anointing my head with oil. However, you know that the priesthood don't teach the people that that's an ascension ritual of the activation of the pineal gland.
Right.
Why? Because they do not teach the people that the origin of that book is Berber culture. And it is metaphorical and allegorical, not actual, the way it's presented to the people. Another lesson in itself. But we need to remind the people of things that have been presented to them that has also been misrepresented.
Right. And when you remind someone, that's why when I was given this name for the assignment, because it's basic. House of Reawakening Minds is the assignment that I was given. That's the word I heard. You must reawaken minds. So that suggests that we had minds that were awakened, that were aware, that were connected to our higher self and so forth. But something happened as along the way, and we got
And what is that something? Some can be named, and it's called unum sanctum dom diversus Romanus Pontifex Intercatera Divina Sister QV Act 1666, collectively known politically as Doctrine of Discovery, exercised today in Rex 84 King Alfred, which is unum sanctum. See, this is the deal, Dr. J. Once you understand the component parts of the engineering. When the operators of the Board of Trustees of the United States Corporation Company, which is the military arm of the bishopric that the people have been told is a country, once they comprehend that it's actually an operative corporation operating on the land, but is not the land,
Right.
that deals with mental, political, and economic war operations for the Pope of Rome and the members of the Circle Church and Chancery. They are better capable of comprehending the operations of God, government, ordinance, departments, which is an acronym and not the creator, never was. Uncomfortable? Yes. Disturbing? Yes. However, that's the truth.
Absolutely. 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 And as I said, we are doing our best to say what we can say in this venue.
Though limited.
Yeah. But which is a really good point, is to let you all know that next Friday actually is going to be I think our last for 2023 will be our last in-person class. We are not sure when we'll start back up in 2024 because it's going to be weather permitting. So January ends up being a snowy January, then of course we won't do it, or more
because of weather manipulation, which is also technological warfare that the general public, some of you are, but the general public is not aware that that's in play.
Yeah, and so we're not doing. I was talking to Sister LaChris today, who is our webmaster, and about it, and I said, we're not going to do schedule November because while many of us don't celebrate Thanksgiving, folks still cook a dinner with their family and call it something else. But it's on that they come together. But many don't.
Most people don't
celebrate Christmas
that they refer to as Thanksgiving.
Well, we know what it really is, but I'm saying
it was murdering of the griots.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, while they say they don't celebrate it, they still somehow manage to come together with family in November and in December. So, in order to not, interfere with those who might do that anyway, we're not going to do the fourth Friday in November or the fourth Friday in December. However, Grand Sheik, and this is just we'll get some more information out, and then we're gonna go back to the class, y'all. So don't run away. Don't run away. It's just a little segment until on the 11th of November, I will be at Atlanta.
Yes.
And I'm going to be there and some more information will come forth for some of the sisters that have signed up for war who want to come out and meet with Mama Callie Sitchin and myself and others. But I'll be traveling to Atlanta for about a 2-week period. I'll be there. But on the 11th, I'm going to be making a presentation there at ATL. Actually in East Point, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's gonna be a small venue. So we'll get some information out to you. Those of you who are in the Atlanta area or don't mind traveling there. I think it's Veterans Day or something.
Yes.
But I will be there at Atlanta in that area on the 11th of November, and probably for the days before and after that, trying to meet up with folk in the area, let y'all know ATL Dr. G's coming your way. So wish I could bring Grand Sheik with me, but this time it'll just be me. So that's just a little for those of you who people have been asking me to come, and
they've been trying to get you there for a minute.
So I'm coming to Atlanta. I'm going to visit my son and my daughter while I'm there, but I'm coming and hope to see some of you all sisters for war
Yes.
We are trying to have a meeting while we're there on the 11th. So just want
And
to let
give
you know.
them the meaning of the acronym.
The war means the women are ready. The women are ready, and we are. We just, we haven't moved as quickly as I would have loved it to have been. I would have loved it to be in full, but it's going to be our ability to come together with those who can be there and set some foundation, some foundational principles that we can then share with the larger group of you all who
And
have
even
done,
as you're interjecting that, when you start looking at our experiences with our so-called organized groups,
Mm-hmm.
by them lacking this knowledge, which is why most things have never worked for us.
Mm-hmm.
You know how we come together, have meetings, and it always dissolves into confusion,
Mm-hmm.
dislikes, infighting. King Alfred, Rex 84.
Yeah, I mean they promote that.
It's
You know,
but the people not being aware of it, they can't protect themselves from their own training. Keep this in mind.
mm-hmm.
The state of mind that they're in is trained in entrainment. They're not aware that they've been entrained.
Yeah.
Therefore, when we're trying to address the injuries of our people, our concepts are already wrong when we come together. This is another reason why we're presenting a synopsis of this of this extract from larger volume of top secret information. But it's enough to, how do you say, stimulate or wake up to some degree any thinking being that has any sense of self and desire for improving the conditions of their people sincerely, not based on emotions or feelings, but on the actual political operations that the masses have been living under knowingly and unknowingly for what? The last 100 and some odd years. Because keep in mind, at the time of the presentment of this extract manual, the operations were already in force.
25 years.
Already operative, even before the 25-year back from 69.
Mm-hmm.
That's only what? Coagulation, or what you would call necessity of Privy Council meeting to do what? Reinforce a clarity of the political existing agenda of unum sanctum, which is actually older.
Mm-hmm.
This is so, how do you say, every once in a while, bringing the board of directors together to remind them of why they're really in political office, distinguished from what they have been telling the general public and maybe starting to believe themselves, to bring them back down to the reality of the political systems of the United States Service Corporation, distinguished from the presentment as a country nation, which it isn't, never was, and will not be, but is the public venue training and entrainment for what? Genocide and human destruction. Uncomfortable truth, however, that is the truth.
I mean, we're in a country that made deals with allegedly extraterrestrials to harvest us in exchange for technology,
including
so the
information that's held back relative to the satellite lunar moon, which is why only one face of it is ever exposed to Midgard, because it does not rotate like the Earth does. That's why they make the reference, what, dark side of the moon? Because they already know that Russia and the Manchurian families in the near future, although they've been leaking it out, are going to start exposing some of the suppressed information of the human experience that has been held back from the masses, and start exposing some of the truth about the satellite actually being occupied. And it's always been occupied. That's another lesson in itself. But just to throw some things at you to comprehend why we can't talk totally what we know, but we can give inference and codes and keys that you may do research on your own to make yourselves more erudite and capable of dealing with those things which are being thrown at you and have been thrown at you that you may have assumed to be one thing, and they always have been other than what you have been presented, i.e., some things we're seeking to unmask so that you will not be diverted.
Yeah, there's just so many things that we've been subjected to, and
more than what you think.
And only this, you have to realize how strong we are. We're how resilient we are, because
more than you think.
We've been, we're like, when they say the Bey's kids, so
generations of genocide.
Check this out. Now it makes sense why they did the Bey's kids.
And you know how like Maya Angelou used to say, we still rise, and still we rise.
Yes.
And logically, that the artificial, what you call the demon or the demigods that have been presented on the people for hundreds of years, their stronghold platforms are being dismantled, which is another reason why they're accelerating Rex 84 in order to what? Maintain semblance of power, if you get the point. And people need to comprehend why economically and politically certain things are taking place that are not natural occurrences, but the people may be trained to think that a lot of these anomalies are natural occurrences. They are not.
They have actually created. Yeah, and the other thing that's in this book that's interesting is the exotic map of the USA, U.S.A. It says featuring towns that actually exist, and
meaning that, can I interject?
Sure.
This is to present to you that all the politicians and persons holding offices of trust in the name of being public servants have a totally realistic knowledge and view of the reality of geography that's held back from the public. We are sharing with you reality distinguished from artificial training. Are we clear? All right, go ahead.
Well, I can't
but you can share and then do a screenshot so they can do screenshots.
I don't know if it's, but you will be able to see you see all these little
all military operatives are aware of this.
So this
people in what you will call barred service, what you call military officers, including the politicians, but not your ordinary soldiers. Some of the ordinary soldiers are aware of this, but for the most part, it deals with what you call NCO level, right? But not the NCO level don't know this. CO levels know this. Are we clear?
I mean, you got most of the names of what we would think of countries in other places were actually
your home. This is where home Dorothy represents in the Wizard of Oz. That's an interjection.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead.
So you've got places like, I'm going to go right here.
Go ahead.
Nassau is actually, where's that? Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
We're in Delaware, but there's a
which is the corporate name for this territory, which is really the United States Corporation Company headquarters, right around the corner, blocks away, that I walked past when I came down here.
Yeah, there's a lot of corporations are.
That's why most of them are registered here and in Nevada. Two major places that the United States Corporation subdivisional corporations are registered is in this territory of the Nonocoke, labeled Delaware.
Or Delaware.
Yes. Lord Delaware of
Delaware.
England.
It's
Keep
actually Delaware.
Yeah, well, you understand.
Yeah.
Delaware.
But Delaware.
But, yeah.
But you've got Turkey, Arabia, Sardinia, Italy, Gibraltar,
Morocco.
Greece, Napoli, I mean Munich,
Mhm.
Jordan, San Juan, Moab, Dublin. I mean, you got almost everything.
So now you see that the politicians don't think the way they're trained or train the people to think. When they're talking to you, that's not really where their mind is, nor their administrative operations have their actual effect. Difficult to accept, however, that's the truth.
Yeah, it is. So just so many things that we're not aware of, and we're just under an illusion, and they present all of these
That illusion is called what? The matrix,
right.
which means womb. Now you know parentis patre, what that is in governmental operations, particularly in all so-called Occidental Western countries, which is a diversive political tag relative to political organized government de facto under colonial operations.
Are you? We try. We will be discussing some things next Friday. For those of you who have some have RSVP'd, you don't have to RSVP to attend. We hope those who have RSVP will actually attend, and anybody else who would like to. Like I said, this is our last gathering in person until at least maybe January, February.
Next cycle.
Remember,
that's not the real natural year. That's called the Roman fiscal year, which is Janus 1, known as January the 1st, which signals the fall of the Alhambra, dealing with the axis, political axis, i.e., of both the precursor known as April Fool. This is when they burnt the ships with Moorish women and children in those ships. Before Boabdil ceded the Alhambra, January the 1st, that ties to the Mummers Parade at Philadelphia, January the 1st, which is the fiscal year for the chancery operations of the Circle Church and Chancery, administering judicial authority on the land under de facto court systems on behalf of the Bishopric of Rome, with their march to the battleground and the lodge that George Washington closed at Philadelphia. Those are keys for you to research. Yield the floor.
There were some folks that were asking and I thought we addressed it, but they were asking about the Snyder Act and getting the land back and so forth. And I think we addressed it.
That's a deception.
Right. That we don't.
But study it anyway, because you need to become familiar. Because remember, everything they present to you is a diversion and a trap relative to the people, quote unquote, reawakening, and their operations are counter moves to rebury you socially, politically, economically, and keep you what they refer to in code mum. Thus, the parade of mummers.
Here's a question. As Grand Sheik, who's doing the dismantling?
Most of to be more direct, It has to do with handfuls of people, mainly the Manchurian families of Manchuria, publicly referred to as China, with bloodline of knowing the ancient ones in the territorial area that you refer to as quote unquote Russia, and Sinda, that you're told is India, and others geographically and politically that are referred to you, but on surface is not who's really operating. But I'm giving you some keys to directives to bloodline that is not public to you. They're countering unum sanctum operations or hybrid European, Khazarian, colonial operations on planet Earth. That's what's taking place.
Mm-hmm.
With some assistance from outside.
And when you say
off planet outside.
Okay, galactic.
Yeah, but we're not concentrating on that at the moment.
Right.
It's sort of like, let's not talk about the dark side of the moon when we need to understand where Broad Street is here, as an example. Not diverting you from it, but don't be distracted. Meaning like this. It is more important for you to know or to deal with the persons who are stealing your bike than the persons who contracted them to steal your bike. Not that those who are in the shadows who contracted those to steal your bike aren't of interest, but don't divert yourself from the reality that the first contact with the octopus of the demons is its tentacles. Don't be distracted from paying attention to the tentacles, which they want you to do.
So how, Grand Sheik, should we be
which is why we're sharing. Yeah. I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah. How should we be how should we be proceeding? Looking at, like, someone wanted you to speak about the war that's happening in Palestine and Gaza and all of that stuff.
Both of which are diversions. However, as real as they are
they proxy?
As real as, yes, they are part of a proxy.
They're proxy wars.
All of it is proxy.
And so the U.S. is.
But remember, we've been telling you about proxy for years. Yeah. And this is why a lot of things that we do, Dr. G, are somewhat redundant, because what good is prophecy if the people don't have it ahead of time to act on it?
Yeah.
Those who are more reawakened to activate it. Because remember, the masses will always be asleep because they're in a hole of ignorance, codified as the burial of the brother with the coat of many colors. They must know the real metaphor, not what they've been told in those houses that they thought belonged to divine God, that actually belonged to the demon gods operating government at Midgard.
Yeah.
That distinction is sort of like, until the people get to a degree of reawakening, they will not comprehend those books because they're all misrepresented. This is why a lot of people, when they begin to get some of the real knowledge, begin to reject those books, recognizing that they're used to enslave humanity. However, those are code books. This is what people must comprehend. They're not to be dismissed. They're to be taken back to the state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers, that the sun, S-U-N, of righteousness starts activating your pineal gland, which is the seat of Dawood, or the seat of heaven, the throne of God. Divine, distinguished from G.O.D, acronym of the demons, which appear similar, they absolutely are not. So you're actually in a war of the gods. This is why Yeshua said, relative to those who are reawakening, not to be confused, for ye all are gods, but it never has been what you thought it was. Never has been. Why it's kind of difficult, Dr. G, because the people have not been told the truth of Canaanite Moabite culture, that the books can be misrepresented by the priesthood who have made themselves God in accord with John 8:44 and Thessalonians 1 and 2, which you all will research on your own, but take those as metaphors so that you can look at your experience on another level. Everything is in layers. And we're trying to talk to you without being shut down. But we're giving you important keys. If you remove your emotions, recognize that they're allegorical. So look up what that means. Metaphorical. And then do a little research on old Moabite Canaanite culture and Berber culture, from which many of those pieces of literatures that you're trained in have their actual origin, and go back to the state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers, that the earth not be smitten with the curse of darkness, that you're being pulled out of the hole, if you get the point.
Yeah, there's so many things that
and I know it may be frustrating
say
for some people because we have to talk indirectly, but if we talk more direct, they'll shut it down immediately. However, trusting that some of you can look through some of the things that are being said, that you will take the effort to do more research and make yourself more erudite, because erudition is deliberately held back from the public. They're only allowed animal husbandry, which is called education, which has never been what they thought it was. Never. And I know it's uncomfortable for all of us. However, reawakening is not a comfortable situation.
It sure isn't.
No different than it is with an, how do you say, a bird coming out of an egg. And when it comes time for them to ascend, they must what? Break the shell. And if they fail to break the shell, what occurs? They don't evolve.
Keep losing Facebook, it keeps telling me.
No different than a seed in the ground. It breaks the earth, doesn't it?
It's
and
like
always with two leaves. And what are they called? Daughter leaves. Now we're talking about gardening, horticulture, seed, ovum, zygote. And it's the same thing when you're dealing with the Ankh and the symbol of generation and regeneration from the abstract to the physical form, which is known as bio. So when you hear some of these terms even used in the war manual, don't think that they haven't studied nature and that they're actually using a knowledge of nature against you, me, and us, knowing that we have not been taught true culture and traditions, and that has damaged us and made us more susceptible to their war operations that the people were not aware of, that war was being waged on you all of your life.
All my life I've had
and the threat of the Third World War
is
that they're threatening that may come
is already here.
Has been here over 70 years.
Been here.
Over 70 years.
Been here.
They'll acknowledge around 68. Their political code for that ongoing unum sanctum wars, which is actually hundreds of years old, is called King Alfred Plan, Rex 84, Executive Order 11490, instruction by the Circle Church and Chancery members known as Pharisees and Sadducees, answerable to Buckingham Palace, Queen of England, answerable to the Bishopric of the Popes of Rome, headed by God, known as Pope Francis. At current event, in non-linear time.
I got to share this one more thing. When they talk about it's called Introduction to Economic Amplifiers, and they talk about inputs, and we talking, they started this stuff back in the 50s. So they talk about what types of data they need to analyze.
Before you continue, can I interject this again?
Sure.
This is relative to the war meeting.
Okay.
And any other meeting that our people may have. Whenever they're having any Privy Council meeting anytime at Germany, at Australia, at England, at North America under the jurisdiction of United States, at Canada, known as Canaan land, that these excerpts from this manual are presented to bring everybody back down to earth before any serious political dissertation takes place, always secretly, which is why those of you who really comprehend why we're having this conversation tonight is that you are instructed to do the same before you have any so-called meetings in your so-called communities that are not your communities, i.e., but among people that you're trying to actually get something seriously done. If you're not precursing your meetings with reminders of Rex 84 and King Alfred, most of the input that comes from the people participating will always be diversionary and self-deprecating, even though not intended. Are we clear? So before you open your meetings, this should be presented to bring everybody back in what? No different when a musician, pianist, or horn, guitar, what do they do before they start the show? They tune their instrument. Suggested wisdom. This is so that you don't waste your time with the diversions of the day, if you get the point. It's called pulling these people back into reality. It's also called taking off their shades. Their sunglasses. That's why they make movies with those type of things. Those are metaphors relative to reality and the masses being asleep. Metaphors relative to fiction and reality. Simulacrum, semblance, and reality. Just a reminder, you all. Go ahead, Dr. J. I apologize for interrupting.
That's okay. Just some of the inputs that they take, that they are gathering, the data that they're gathering on the people, on the masses. They have questions. It's the questions to be answered. What, when, where, how, why, who. General information, sources of information is telephone taps, surveillance, analysis of garbage, and behavior of children in school. This is some of the stuff they look at. The standard of living by, they look at the food, the clothing, shelter, transportation, our social contacts. They're looking at telephone, itemized record of calls, family, marriage certificates, birth certificates, friends, associates, what organizations you have memberships in, personal buying habits, personal consumer preferences. They're looking at checking accounts, credit card purchases, tagged credit card purchases, the credit card purchase of a product that bears that UPC, that universal product code. They're analyzing that. They're looking at your assets, checking, savings, real estate, business, automobiles, safe deposit at a bank, stock market, liabilities, your creditors and your enemies, your loans and your consumer credit, government sources, which they call which they themselves call ploys. Now they put these in, they call these their ploys: welfare, Social Security, USDA surplus food, which would be SNAP or something probably now, doles, grants, and subsidies. These are their, they call
etc. All of those are
yeah,
tools.
they weren't there yet. No, they call them ploys.
Now, remember what we talked about earlier when I was coming down here, and we were just talking about earlier before we started the show, and we was discussing about the free phones.
Oh yeah,
that you brought up.
They were on the corner.
Their actual function, you just did what? You actually are reading their actual political function.
So principles of this ploy, the citizen will almost
for
always
data collection. That's what they're for.
Yeah, will almost always make the collection of information easy if he can operate on the free sandwich principle of eat now, pay later. So they were giving free phones all day out here on the corner.
Yep.
From where I live. Yeah. And we were talking about it. It's like, surveillance. Yeah.
Nothing's free. They are weapons.
So then here's their more sources. This is what they call via intimidation. Internal Revenue Service, OSHA, census, and then they go, etc. But you can put FEMA and a lot of all those other things in there.
Now interjection too, Dr. G. You notice how they've been using corporate, legal, not lawful, execution against quote unquote indigenous singers and rappers to bring them down, called RICO.
Well,
and I'm just reminding many of you, so a lot of things you see is not what you think it is.
Yeah.
That's still King Alfred.
Well, they're also looking at our strengths and weaknesses. They look at activities like sports, hobbies.
Who tells them? You do.
Yeah.
That's why they set up
Facebook,
military operate. Exactly.
TikTok. Yeah.
And
Instagram.
What? They don't have to investigate.
You tell them.
You tell them.
Yeah.
Even showing them your families and your plans. This is why they also started doing what they would call what? Phone digital deposit and so-called payments. And don't think they're not going to shut it off at necessary times.
Well, they look at your hospital records.
If you don't have it in your hand, you don't have it.
They look at hospital records like drug sensitivities,
Everything.
Reaction to pain. They want to know what how much you can take without, they look at psychiatric references like fears, angers, disgust, adaptability, your reaction to stimuli, violence, suggestibility of or
and unbeknownst to you, it's already recorded before you even deal with them.
They look at consumption of alcohol, drugs.
And Dr. G, just a reminder, that database is part of what is used in the master computers, the mega computers that are foundational within the context of, not limited to, within the context of what is presented to you now as quote unquote AI, which is put in place to take your jobs too. But also that has layers too.
But it's all right. So you can probably download this. I know I've seen it on.
They remove most of it, but some of it.
Scribd has some
people
have uploaded it on Scribd and whatever.
But we'll, remember, Dr. G.
Yeah.
Some of the things that we're not going to say totally here.
Yeah.
When you went to Texas.
Right. No, I didn't go to Texas.
Well, I'm just saying.
I went to Arizona.
Arizona, but still. That's still part of Texas, in case you didn't know.
No, okay.
But you remember they rearranged the map.
Okay.
All right, this podcast. some of the things that are being done to restore some of my original texts.
Yeah.
That's what that's for.
Yeah, we're working on it.
And so other stuff.
It'll be available.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Through the House of Reawakening Minds.
Right.
All right.
Right. So listen, it's 2 hours, y'all. We it's Friday. It's 2. 2 hours in. We love to go over, but we're gonna let you go. I think we're gonna let you go.
And we appreciate your patience.
Yeah.
But you need to comprehend that we're sending out vital messages for current events.
Yeah.
Without being as direct as we could in order not to be shut down.
Yeah. And we hope to see you on next
Yes.
next Friday, the 27th, at the House of Reawakening Minds. As we said, this is the absolute last one of this period,
this cycle,
because we're not sure what's going to happen, and we know we're not going to do it in November and December.
Remember, they're also in these next few months, they're going to be accelerating both the dismantlement and the war attacks at the same time.
Absolutely.
So just be on guard for a lot of confusion that's taking place. Also, avoid, if possible, airports or any large gathering areas. Unfortunate, but I'm just being honest with you and real with you.
And we also want to remind you, save the date. For those of us who ascend above all of the BS, and in 2024, we're having our Spring into Action conference, April 27th through 29th. Put that date down. More information.
So we're dealing with vernal equinox cycle.
Spring into Action is we want to move. We started some stuff in what was it, August, when we were together last, and we want to pick it up with springing forward into action
from the vernal equinox, from the autumnal equinox, and then we're moving to the vernal equinox cycle.
Yeah, so we would love for you to be a part of that. We are looking, Grand Sheik, for a larger venue for our Saturday, just so that we can accommodate more folks. So we will let you know, but those are definitely the dates, whether or not we do it at the house or whether or not we have to do it, in that other location that we're trying to obtain. But we just want you to know that we are, moving forward as if, Now,
again, let me close with a repeat of Article 1, Section 10. And this is in reference to the members of the Circle Church and Chancery enforcing on the people, right? See, the central bank digital currency, which is what they're forcing on you now after they steal your accounts that we've been warning you for years that they would be doing. So I'm going to repeat, as we opened up, we're going to close with Article 1, Section 10, Constitution, obligation of all public servants operating under the Republic, which they overthrew secretly. This is their actual obligation. No state shall, without the consent of the Congress, lay any impost, duties, or imports or exports except what may be absolutely necessary for executing its inspection. And this is actually a subsection, right? So we're dealing with more 11, but we're going to go back to 10. But this is effect in relationship to exports, and taxation. So when you're dealing with issues of tax, so keep that in mind. Inspection laws and the net produce of all duties and imposts. Keep these in mind so you can do your secondary research. Laid by any state on imports or exports shall be for the use of the Treasury of the United States, and all such laws shall be subject to the revision and control of the Congress. All right, keep that in mind, because these things are operating as we're speaking politically. All right, and being abridged or subverted by these same people who are obligated to this. Keep this in mind. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Break this down seriously so you can comprehend their obligations and what they're doing to you currently to cause injury for conquest purposes. For this is what? Absolutely opposite of King Alfred. And King Alfred is designed to subvert this obligation. Keep that in mind, because they're going to be moving you against your will into CBDCs. Keep that in mind. Digital currency of the central bank of the Pope of Rome through the what? Federal Reserve overseers of the Circle Church and Chancery under the name of digital currency, intended to injure you and to totally subjugate you. I yield the floor.
Well, I think that's all, folks. What you say?
That's all, folks.
Thank you as usual. We love you all. We appreciate you. We appreciate you, each and every one of you, for taking time out of your busy day to be here with us. I will be back on Tuesday with Constantine Lamont L. Y'all want to tune in 8 p.m. on this same channel, 8 p.m. on Tuesday, Eastern.
And in future, we're planning to have many of you who have been sharing with us here on the House of Reawakening Minds. My cousin, Truth Ali, will be bringing a lot of research information to you, which he has prepared. And he and his wife have it prepared for you, including some of their literature. And those who have been sharing here with us on the House of Reawakening Minds, I suggest that you be prepared to take serious notes, because you're going to be hit with a lot of research information that will be beneficial to you, particularly the Aboriginal people, i.e., of Moabite Canaanite descent, commonly referred to as Moors. That's all of these people who have been artificially branded as Negroes, Blacks, Coloreds, and Indians for purpose of your aided redemption. I yield the floor. Have a good night. Thank you for sharing this night with us here at the House of Reawakening Minds with myself and Dr. G. Islam, Assalamu Alaikum, Shalom, Vadi Makum, Bon Abort.
Alrighty. We're leaving. Okay. Thank you all.
The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living the life I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living the life I'm reawakening my